We've talked about this issue quite a bit. The Collins-class submarines are sort of get to their end of their useful life. Then there's a gap of about a decade before the new French Barracuda are ready. Now, there's a lot of money going into extending the life of the Collins. And now a lot of experts are saying, well, hang on a second, why can't we accelerate the design and construction of the French subs? Is that feasible?
Well, I doubt it. So you're going to have to extend some of the Collins. The question is it 4, 5 or 6? The Minister for Defence recently said all 6. I think that's a good idea. It gives you some float in the system. If you try and accelerate the attack class submarine, you might reduce the number of Collins upgrades by 1 or 2. It's not really going to change that very much, and I think you'll introduce a whole lot of risk into the attack class program. We've seen throughout history people try to design and build ships and submarines faster. Generally what happens is you realise halfway through the build process that by cutting corners on the design you've introduced a whole lot of problems, and you end up spending a lot more time and money trying to fix the problems you've introduced into the schedule. So you might be able to reduce the attack class schedule by a year or 2. It's not really going to change the overall grand schedule of the transition from the Collins to the attack class, in my view.
What about the suggestion that with teams in France and in Australia, you can have them working virtually around the clock? Presumably there's a fair bit of that going on anyway.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there's not a lot of submarine engineers and submarine designers in the world. They're a pretty scarce commodity. The French are also working on their own programs. They're also trying to sell submarines to other customers. So there's not an endless supply of submarine engineers in the world. So it's not really a matter of throwing more money at the problem to get a faster solution.
Just how vulnerable will we be? I mean, how important are submarines to our defence? Do we have enough of them? And how vulnerable will we be in the transition from Collins to the Barracudas?
Well, I think we kind of have a rather unhealthy fetish around submarines in this country. Submarines are important. They're a useful military capability, but they're not the only military capability. So even if we get the submarine issue right, you still need lots of other capabilities. And to me, that's the kind of Plan B space we should be looking at. What other capabilities can we acquire to supplement submarines, to work in concert with submarines, whether that's or unmanned underwater vessels or new strike weapons, new strike aircraft? That's the space we should be looking at. But to answer your question directly, will we be okay in the transition? My sense is yes, if we get the Collins life of type extension right, that will keep us at 6 submarines throughout the transition to the attack class. So in a sense, we'll be able to stay roughly where we are now. We won't fall below 6 submarines, but we're not going to get more capability for quite a long time. So the other part of the puzzle about accelerating the attack class is we actually build them faster. So you're probably aware that under the current plan, we don't get the 12th attack class submarine until sometime in the 2050s. That's because the whole program assumes a 2-year drumbeat. So essentially the drumbeat means what's the delivery gap between boats. So at the moment, it's built around 2 years. Why is it built around 2 years? That's so it all very neatly, once you deliver the 12th submarine, it's time to start replacing the first submarine. So it's really built around providing assurance to industry about work and jobs for Adelaide rather than giving us the capability we need sooner.